Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Sunday Night 40k Night. That's right, a brand new section that we do every week, which I'm very excited about. And I've got three legends. I've got Neil and Tom on the show, and introducing our special guest, Piotr. So important is Piotr, so famous in the Polish 40k scene, that Neil and Tom said they might listen to his opinions on stuff. Which is a bold move, lads.
I'll listen. Doesn't mean I'll remember it.
I think I've known Piotr for like 7 or 8 years now. I don't think I've ever listened to him once yet. So,
yeah. Well, you know me since I was like a very ugly little girl. So
with your long hair.
It was a while. Yeah.
Did everyone have long hair in 2013? Apart from Neil, who never had hair, but
I did, if that helps you.
Fair enough.
Okay. Right, hello everyone in the chat. Today we're going to be talking about week 4 of the Greekhammer WTC 40k TTS tournament that's been going on. They're rounds that occur. It's 5 rounds that occur over 2 weeks. We'll be looking at the pairings and we'll also be looking at some stats. But before we do get on with that, it'd be remiss of me not to talk to my co-hosts. So Piotr, as the guest, you get to go first. How are you? Welcome to the show.
So thank you for having me. I'm glad to finally take place here. I know I was invited back once, but I'm happy to take play. I'm losing my. I cannot speak right now. Sorry, but yeah. I hope I will be of use with the incoming pairings and with the incoming stats that I was coding down.
You are going to be. You're going to be very of use. Let me talk about the credence.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
Let me move over to Neil. Neil, how are you? And also, do you want to give us some background on Piotr? Because he's not going to big himself up, so I think you're going to have to do the job.
I'm doing good after spending all day going around Gothenburg trying to find this. Diachasm box, get one of the
That's
models
what you
out.
spent your day doing.
Well,
Wow.
we're also taking Dylan for a long walk so Maria could get some reprieve because
Around the
it's been a really rough couple of nights, Dylan.
Mhm.
But it turns out, I walk into the GW and it's like they still are empty. They've still not got anything in stock. It's crazy. Like the independent stores are getting stock before the GW in Gothenburg is getting stock. So yeah, Brexit.
You say that, I saw Sean Gill on Twitter today complaining about the independent stockists in the UK not getting anything either.
Yeah.
So
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I also haven't got any Warhammer where I am. So like
Yeah,
we're all feeling. I haven't. There isn't a shop here, to be fair, and everything's closed. So
Yeah. But I should be complaining. I would like to walk around and go to cafes and buy coffee. So it's just my Warhammer hobby suffering. But Piotr, otherwise known as Typhus. I mean, what should we say? He's the biggest ass at what was it? One of the Polish fucks, one of the biggest asses in the WTC.
Wow.
No, I mean he is a legend. Piotr is one of the most accomplished players of the WTC in terms of like being part of a winning team. He was very much part of Poland when they were one of the most dominant forces of WTC. To the point that in 2016 he was going to referee with me for the first time, and the Polish team paid him to play instead.
Wow.
So that kind of says so he's a wee bit better than me and Tom, to say the least. But the past few years he's been head referee with me. He also referees up a lot of events in Poland and around Europe. He's also one of the guys who selects the Polish team. So lots of bribes, lots of beers getting sent his way and stuff, no doubt.
Nice.
And he's an all-round great guy as well.
So like the Olympics committee, but one man is what we're seeing. Okay, amazing.
Typhus is the beautiful person behind my ego throne as head referee.
Okay. Just a quick one.
I'll take that.
This is just a quick one, Piotr. Let's just say I wanted to make a sort of super team of incredible 40k celebrities from around the world. Are you open to me bribing you? Are you like Poland forever? Like you're never ever like?
Well, as I was already bribed once to play.
Okay.
So there's surely a price. So don't worry.
Yeah.
If you're listening, sponsors, get in on that action. Tom, how have you been? You been keeping well?
yeah, I've been fine, mate. I've spent the day doing some admin for the team to the point where Full Metal Jacket gifts are currently flying through the Welsh 40k chat.
Okay.
But we won't talk about that because Tom has had a very frustrating day. But apart from that, it's been all right. I've been kept pretty occupied this weekend because I haven't really had any times in the evenings during the week because I've been busy quite early in the day. But once we get through this week, we should be okay. So I'm all right. I'm more than halfway through now, so I'm kind of good.
Oh, lovely. Okay. What is his secret? Nikos, great question,
Yeah,
Piotr.
Nikos asking.
Yeah, before we get into it, what's your secret, Piotr? Like, how do you take the information in for the game and process it in that gorgeous head of yours?
Full gamer chair.
Yeah, what do you do?
Oh man, now I'm gonna blush, man. No. I'm just very analytical. So it's brain type. I don't know, thinking time. I just like to look for patterns, even to that extent. And when I was going to the office, I found a better way, more efficient, because I had to open one less door than other people. So yeah, it's just the way my brain works. I don't know.
Did you give yourself a trophy for that? Were you like, I'm the fastest at getting here now, trophy for me?
Yeah, of course. I could grab the coffee earlier than others, so
smart.
So they had to wait for me.
Neil, do you want to tell us where we're at in the Greekhammer event? Like, where are we up to?
So we are in the middle of round 3. The draw was done on Monday, and obviously all the pairings have been done. So this weekend is really when the teams have started playing the games. So right in the middle of the thick of it. But not all the games are finished, far from it, but a lot of them have been happening. I've been getting a lot of ref calls over the weekend, people asking small questions and that, so it's in full swing. And right now, sitting top of the charts is Canada, if I remember rightly.
Wow.
Let me open Tawny Keeper, and I shall pull up the leaderboard. Wow. Just to remind me.
I just got thrown back to 2016 when someone said, "Let's open Tawny Keeper." Sorry, I was just it threw me out the window there.
Yeah, so you've got Hottest Takes, who is actually one of the TTS teams. They're sitting sitting out there at the top playing against this Germany scouting, and then you've got the German trolls and
I
Team
think
Poland.
actually the table is not correct. Canada
Yeah.
should be at the first or second place, not 11.
So I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the pairings because I know the actual leaderboards updated live as people put results.
Oh yeah,
But
right.
But Canada, Germany scouting there on the second row, and obviously Poland and Greece, Hellas, they are sitting in sort of 6th, 7th place respectively. So it's looking interesting. Like I said, the hottest takes is a very interesting team because these are TTS players through and through, including a guy. Because while the Greekhammer event started, it's also been the end of what's the Warhammer TTS tournament, which has been a 120-man online tournament ran by Fred from Team Germany.
Fredo, yeah.
Wow.
Fredo. And the final was yesterday. I was dialed in to referee the final yesterday, and it was actually won by the hottest takes Harlequin player, a guy called Liam Vasil from Belgium, and he's supposedly the quote-unquote best TTS player in the world because he's basically been clearing out all these TTS events that have been going on for the past year.
Oh, never mind.
Has he played in real Hammer events?
Well, this was super interesting. Him and a few of the other guys, there was a bit of a discussion on the Greekhammer forum about, how the Greekhammer event's actually more of a relaxed event. It's more of we're using it as a way to test things for WTC. So there are certain things that aren't really there, that are idiosyncratic, and it requires a little bit of sort of like acceptance that everything's not perfect. And there was sort of discussing about how things aren't working on TTS, but they're going to be done this way because they'll work in real life. And a lot of these guys, these TTS guys, said some of them haven't even played 40k before TTS and Nightmare became a thing. And a few of them, like this Liam, they've tried it out in real life and they find it really hard. They actually say because they can't micromanage everything to the detail, and then they can't obviously the way they can obviously the views they can get in TTS. You never miss anything. But that's standing on one side of the table and playing. These guys say it's actually a real challenge for them, which is really interesting.
Actually, we had a similar case in Poland. We had like a meetup with people from TTS to check out how they play. In terms if WTC would happen, so we know what we are playing with, whether they will crumble under the pressure, etc. And they were complaining. For example, one thing that I've seen that people who play TTS and not the IRL version of Warhammer before is that they do not walk around the table. And they do not see the whole picture. And that's one of the things that I've noticed. Like they sit, they just wait, like they would in front of the computer, but they do not see the whole picture because of that. So
that's actually fascinating.
Hey Rob, I told you that's the reason to why I did it.
Yeah. but as a quick segue as well, Rob, because obviously I said this final was played yesterday. It was won by Liam, the Harlequin player. But the guy who came second, the other guy in the final, was Mark Deiskels, a German player. He actually was running an orc army.
Wow!
So he come all the way through 120 players for an orc army that, amongst other things, had I think it was 3 or 4 scrap jets and 3 battle wagons with the big cannons on.
Nice.
It was a very interesting orc army. Yeah, he basically lost on one. There was one decision that lost in the game, and even he said he lost the game at that point. We realised the mistake he made. But really well piloted orc list, to say the least.
Amazing. I can't wait to check that out. Thank you very much for bringing that up. You know I love a good orc list. So very excited about that. Okay, so let's talk about the event as a whole, right? Because Piotr's been serious about getting some stats together. So should we look at some of these?
Yeah.
So first, I don't know which ones you guys want first. I've got the point spread available, point scaling, secondary picks, primary point spread.
Just whack them up and we'll talk about them.
Okay. Well, first one we've got is the point spread. So over the 246 games that have happened so far, this is the score, I think, and therefore the point spread for the different results, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this, Piotr? Or does anyone want to talk about this?
I could talk about it a little bit because we had one earlier a couple of weeks ago, right after the first round, where we looked at it, and it was kind of swung out towards the 20s, and then there was nothing in the 10s of it. It was kind of bumpy in the middle. It looks like the middle's kind of evened out a bit, and the 10s have come up, but the 20s are still very, very high, which is surprising. I don't know about you, Neil.
No, I don't think the 20. I don't think the 20's been high surprising because you're expecting to get 20s in some of the in the early pairings. You know, you'd expect those defenders to give up high points, potentially 20s there. What I do find interesting is, like you say, this middle spread is becoming a lot more even. Before it was high, it was 20s and and even like the 19s and the 18s were quite high. They're generally spreading out, and in fact, this middle band here, you know, we'll say sort of like the 12 to 8 point band is a lot. There's a lot of scores going in there now. It shows that things are starting to even out as obviously people are paired into much more even teams. So from a WTC perspective, organized perspective, this is great because we want to make sure the games are tighter, the matches are tighter. Because if we play 8 rounds, or we do WTC live, we don't want a team to have like won 5 matches in a row and no one else can beat them. So making it harder to get the big wins makes the event better in the long run.
And just for people who might not understand what they're seeing here, in 40k, obviously, you score 45 primary, 45 secondary, and 10 for your paints. We'll sideboard that for a moment. What you're seeing here is that the points differential by how much you beat your opponent by produces a 0 to 20 point final. So, if you dominate your opponent, you get 20 points. If your opponent dominates you, get 0. The closer you are on those points, the more you'll tend to push into the middle. What's fascinating for me is that there is that level of domination where you end up with these 20-0s. And I think that's quite interesting, that people are just not able to pick up almost any primaries or secondaries. I think that's genuinely interesting. Piotr, you got any thoughts?
I think there are 2 reasons about that. First of all, it's, as Neil mentioned, that first rounds produced more skewed pairings. In sense, for example, Poland played against South London Legion, a team made of mostly casual players. And that game ended 120 to 40, with a lot of 20-0s or 18+ scores. But when it comes to the next rounds, I think there should still be some 20-0s depending on the mission. For example, the third mission that's played right now, I think, Vital
Intelligence,
Vital Intelligence is gonna produce more 20-0 scores as well, as it's more swingy with how it works, with scoring free markers to get the 10 points, etc. And to add more to that, even on singles, you wouldn't get that many 20-0s. But in team tournament, team environment, you usually get pairings that are kind of created by the captains, by the pairing process, in a sense to get points in one pairing. Like we do when we do pairings in Poland, we try to get 7 drawish pairings and 1 huge win for us, because it gets that 90 points win, and we can get some smaller wins from other players, but there would be a 20. Maybe there will be, for example, 2 20s for one team and 1 20 for another team, so it will still balance out, but it will still result in a lot of 20s.
So I've got a point and a question I just want to make on that. The first point is going more on the vital intelligence point that you made, Piotr, in terms of if you end up getting something like priority targets, which is insanely hard to get 20'd on, you'll see that come right the way down, because you only need 2 objectives to get the 10 points, and you have a secondary that's basically impossible to not get max on, right? So immediately you're looking at potentially getting 55 points, which means that you're completely out of the mark for getting a 20-pointer. The second question I wanted to ask is, if we look at this graph here, what do the numbers on the left-hand side mean, and how do we work out what percentage of the games are now 20-0s? Because if you're saying you pair 7 even matchups and maybe you've got 120, if I'm looking at the side, I don't know how many games in a round of 8 that necessarily means you're going to get 20s in.
We're all still here, right?
Yeah.
Just silence. Okay.
I'm trying to work out what the 70, 60, 50, 40, 30 on the side mean.
I think the longer we'll have the tournament going, we'll have more mass accumulated into the middle of the spread. So more games will be around those 7 to 13 points, and we will have a few games going into those 1 to 4 points and a lot of 21s. But it is a team environment, so usually you can get those 7 points even in a bad matchup. But you need to play precisely, know what you are doing, and play very defensively, having that one in mind. So.
Okay. Well, so thank you to BloodPod for subscribing. Our next stat, big love to you, that's really appreciated, is our point scaling. So we've got going first, going second.
I like this one.
And your game score. So Piotr, could you talk me through this graph?
So essentially, what I was doing when I was coding this down, I was looking to see some patterns, and one of those things that I cannot really read this graph. So if one of you can actually explain it, that would be better, because I was doing the data production, not the data visualization of this one. So Neil, Tom, any one of you help?
If you so what the graph is essentially saying is the average number of points you get out of 20 on the 20-0 scale when you're going second is 10.28, and the average number of points you're getting when you're going first is 9.72. So effectively, you're getting a 0.56 more points if you're going second, which I think is actually quite big, considering that most of the points will come from when you can control the matchup, right?
I mean, that's actually the other graph you're looking at there, Tom.
Oh, I thought you said it was average game points.
Point scaling. But
that one I could.
The big thing about this point scaling graph is, if you look, there are two lines on the graph. There's a blue line and an orange line. Mm-hmm. But in fact, they're so hard to differentiate because the simple fact is there is a negligible difference between going first and going second. How that is affecting your score is negligible. We're not seeing, if say going second was having a significantly detrimental effect on your score, that orange line would be much lower than the blue one. The fact that they're on top of each other is showing that that it doesn't matter. The point score there is not really relevant to who's going first or second.
That's actually really interesting, actually.
Which is then backed up by what Tom just said, which is the average game points. You want to flick to that one, Rob?
Yeah, not the primary points, the average game points. There we go.
Yeah, again, average game points, going first, going second. They are essentially, there is what you're talking, there's 0.56 difference between those two. So just slightly more than half a point difference in average between going first and second, which means that, a combination of the new rules for going second, plus some of the tweaks to the missions, plus, potentially the terrain, and how that's shaping the meta in this tournament is balancing the game out, whereby there is not as in the early part of Ninth Ed, there was a significant advantage going first. I think he got up to like 60% at some points. There was like a 60% win rate first. This is showing it's balanced out a lot more.
And I think it will still show if you are not playing on such dense terrain as we do, because you have few armies. If you would look into other data, I don't think we'll have graphs for that. You have few armies that are very shooty, like Admech, some versions of Tau that were present at the tournament. And those armies had huge advantage going first. It was like their average score would be 13 instead of 9 when going first. So that's a huge difference. But when it comes to like team environment, I think how dense the terrains are, and that few armies can reliably choose a table that they will play comfortably on going first, actually shows that most people were prepared for the terrains. I think it should be reflected even more with the change of the rosters that happened during the whole tournament. Because when you talk with players, you actually hear them that they do not want to go first, because they need to start pushing onto objectives first. They need to be traded first, etc. So I think with these dense tables, it leads to more, I don't know how to say it, interesting gameplay, because you do not wipe your opponent off the table in 1-2 turns and there's nothing to play later on. You still can fight.
100% agree. I just like the kind of spread rather than it all being kind of heavy, right? Like I liked last edition where you had 2 light balls and everyone would put down Admech or Tau as first defender, because it gave you some more things to do in the pairings. You'd have lists that would be built to deal with those kinds of things. Like you'd see demons often thrown into the Tau or what have you. Whereas when you kind of get a more homogenous group of boards, it removes quite a bit of that. But I think we are still seeing a couple of boards where you can play the Admech or play the Tau or whatever, as you say, because as we see in the pairings here, that's what you guys do.
And that's what we actually prepared when we were actually thinking with our team, which I will talk later about. So, but yeah, I think it's healthy for the game if we do not have wipeouts. And I think it promotes better strategic gameplay in a sense that you can plan out what you will do throughout the whole game. So I think it's great. some people might complain, but I think that dense tables, of course, they limit some armies, some models, but they are great.
I would follow up on that. I personally think that like not being able to engage with each other turn one and having to move around the board and operate in that sphere would actually make more interactive games. That seems to make sense. Like in loads of ways. Okay, next graph. Let's give it a look. So the next one we're looking at is the secondary picks. Tom, I know you're a big fan of this. Because
right, let's see how many people are griefing. Let's see. Oh my lord!
Oh, look, engage in all fronts, raise banners while we stand
secondary is the 6th most popular secondary. 23 people hate their teammates.
Or 23? Is it percent? I think it's the percentage.
It's percent.
Holy moly, that's a big percentage of people who are griefing. Holy shit!
So
now, if we take out G-Stealer cult players and people with warp spiders, maybe we can reduce that to like 20%, but that's still a high percentage of people who hate everyone.
Well, just to go through it, the engage on all fronts is the most popular, and not far off is raise the banners. With third is while we stand, while we fight, and then there is a significant drop off. You go from like 45% on while we stand, while we fight, down to like 28% on minimize losses, and then assassinate is 22. Deploy scramblers is 22, and then everything else is like below 12%, which is pretty fascinating. Have you got any like top level thoughts about this, Neil? Piotr?
It shows that the missions aren't balanced whatsoever, and there are a couple that are just far superior to all the others.
Yeah.
And basically, GW needs to have. I mean, there is going to be hopefully, summertime big FAQ, new chapter approved, and hopefully they're going to have a very big, long, hard look at the missions, because it is dull as dishwater if you're basically playing. Because primary missions are pretty much the same mission every time. It's just holding objectives. There's no real variation there. And if you're basically playing with like 3 secondaries all the time, I mean, it's just dull as dishwater, personally.
Yeah, and to add why there is such a drop-off, there is one reason, actually. You can tailor your list to play well on Engage and while we stand, we fight.
Yeah.
So they are picked so often because so many armies can actually play those missions as they are tailor-made for their lists. So that's also a point to take into consideration.
Yeah, you could also come out and say that you can tailor your list for deploy scramblers, but also even if you do that, that's still within your opponent's control mostly, just depending upon when you get it, right? So you could end up just tailoring your list to get it and then getting completely boned because your opponent isn't a clown.
Yeah, I think that's basically what's happening. Deploy scramblers was very popular at the start of life. People just learned very quickly how to negate it.
Mate, it gives me endless pleasure to see Razor Banners, which is from the same tree as the second most popular scramblers, is all the way down here. It's still too high. Get that number down, but it's a lot higher than it should be.
I can explain that one. It's skewed because we only have data from two rounds and a little bit of third. So 2 missions that we had previously were favorizing choosing raise banners high because you had either 2 or 3 objectives on your close to your deployment. So you could easily take maybe not a lot of points, but like 10, 12 from this mission alone. So the data is skewed because we haven't played the full tournament yet.
Yeah. I mean, if I just look at the chapter approved a second, or the Grand Tournament pack, you've got 5 trees in here, right? You immediately sack off Warpcraft because it's dog shit and no one takes it. So now you have to pick 3 secondaries from 4 trees. That is Battlefield Supremacy, where you take Engage or Domination. No Mercy, No Respite, where most of the time you just take While We Stand. Maybe you take Run Them Down. Purge the Enemy, which you don't see very often unless you see a Bring It Down. And then Shadow Operations, where you're choosing between Scramblers, which it's not even a choice, don't pick it, and Raise the Banners. Yeah. So you're very much limited in what you're taking anyway.
And the thing is, this graph here, like obviously Typhus said, we're only talking about 2 rounds, so a very small sample size. But these stats really back up like what's coming out of Australia and other regions that are playing events now. That it is just these 3 secondaries being picked all the time. Okay. And it's just such a dull, for me. I'm sorry, it's just such a dull method to be in.
You're right.
It's so samey in every possible way.
Well, we need more trees.
Like more options, I think is also super interesting. Also, a question I have on this, and I don't want to spend too long on the answer. Do you think that because of the 3 secondaries that we're seeing be most popular, that ties in with the armies we see, or is it like a reverse? Is it that the armies that are strong and the ones that we see a lot are the ones that tie into these secondaries very well as well, or do you think it's just kind of a bit of both?
I mean, it's like Typhus said. You can much more easily tailor your army to these secondaries. It almost doesn't matter what army you're playing as well. There are ways to tailor it to these. So these are very, while we stand and engage, are secondaries you can plan your army around very simplistically, and making sure saying that I know I'll be able to have models in these 3 quarters throughout 4 rounds of the game. And there are very few armies that can't achieve those.
Okay.
So it's just that they're very simplistic. And therefore, simplistic is reliable, and therefore you pick them.
So then,
and you can actually.
Oh, go on, Piotr.
I will add one more thing. When you look at this graph, you see minimized losses as the fourth secondary that was picked, and that's also a thing to recognize, because that shows how what Tom mentioned, that you only have 4 branches and you can choose like 2 good missions from those branches, and then you usually rely on the mission secondary. And minimize losses is a decent secondary. Same, I think we'll see now after round 3, with data intercept being a secondary that will be picked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it should be visible in the data as well going forward.
I have a quick question, actually, just based off looking at these. Priority targets, have you banned a secondary from that mission because it was so easy? Because I don't see it on this list. Oh, no, you haven't had the mission, so of course you haven't.
Yeah, we didn't have it. It would be, every army would pick it.
Yeah, it's broken.
Like
it's
every list will pick that secondary.
And
It's that dumb.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah.
All right, sweet. So then we got a primary point spreadsheet. So going first, going second, your ability to achieve it, as you guys can see on the. Do you think that, like, you guys can see this on screen here? Do you think anything particularly stands out on this?
I think there's one thing to recognize, is that if you're going second with the new change of how you score secondaries, you always get the chance to get some secondaries. And you can see that there's no 0 points from secondaries if you are going second. There are cases of having 0 points from primaries. Yes. There are cases of 0 points from primaries if you are going first, but none in the other case. And what other thing you should see is that there is a lot of cases where both sides score a lot, and I think it shows how the game is kind of played. You either have very skewed pairings, which were reflected in the point spread, and you have armies one does 40 points from primary, other does 10, but you also get those matches where you actually win 12 or 8. Or you get 8 by just having better secondaries than the opponent in that current mission, because you have, for example, list made for While We Stand, and both sides then kind of tie on primary.
Yeah, looking at this, I think the most interesting part to me is the drop-off between 25 and 30 on the going first. Because if I'm looking at like decent primary score, it's like 30 plus, right? If you're getting 20, you've just stood in an objective for 4 turns, assuming that it's a hold 1 or rather than a hold 2 mission, right? Whereas with going second, you always have that insurance policy of the last turn where you just jump on all the shit and you just get it. Whereas going first, you kind of have to be there and hold it, right?
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's get on to the pairings. Some very interesting stats. Really interesting, and I can't wait to see how this changes over the next few rounds, because not to forget we've got the 3rd round coming up soon, right? And we're right now going to be looking at the pairings from the 2nd round. This is the one we're looking at. Neil,
this is the 3rd round.
Oh, the third round.
Yeah, we're in the third round. So this is Team Poland. This is one of the big reasons we got Typhus on today, because he's obviously heavily involved in that, versus Team Hellas, which is Greece.
Hellas is Greece and Greek. Yeah.
Greece and Greek, yeah. So this is 2 WTC teams playing each other. So this will be quite interesting. And going straight into the first pairings, what's super interesting is that both Poland and Greece have a very similar AdMech armies, and they were the first defenders for both of them.
Yeah, both playing Breach of Spam.
Breach of Spam plus doggies.
So they both went in as first defenders. Fascinating. Let me just check that. Yeah, that's true. Amazing. And then they got attacked with Custodes. Poland attacked with Custodes and with Dark Angels. Are we allowed to know the thoughts behind this?
That's why we got Typhus.
Shall to go.
So basically, our Dark Angels, and we tested, as I was playing AdMech as well, that one of the worst pairings for AdMech is Space Marines. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter which kind of Space Marines army it is; it's still bad. So that's an easy attacker, and the other attacker is our Custodes, which I think most people are sleeping on as an army, and it's still a very good army, but it requires nearly perfect play. I think the same applies to Eldar, for example. And if you know how to use your resources, which you have very limited access to, then it can win. So our player of Custodes was very well trained against Admech, and he knew what to do. So he felt pretty confident in the pairing, although he knows that it can get swingy with those Stratoraptors. So
fascinating. Okay, all right. Well, and but both big attackers, right? Like, you gave them a hard choice on either side. The Dark Angels and the Custodians are hard. We don't know the results yet, do we?
We only know one game.
Okay. All right. Well,
I will
Neil
tell when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Neil and
so
Tom, I'm gonna go on. Neil,
yeah, so the Greeks obviously picked the Custodes, the Polish Custodes army to go here, and I was talking to Nico about this, who's the Greek captain, and he was saying that basically they put Admech forward because they felt they needed their Admech army to choose the right board. Yeah. It's a very heavy shooty army, so it needs to have a board they can shoot on. And then they basically, when they were basically the choice, it was basically a case of they thought they'll be able to shoot off Custodes better than Dark Angels. Is basically how they see the game going out. Obviously, Dark Angels right now, especially this Dark Angel list that Poland's running, is basically just Terminators. And you guys have got 4 units of Terminators in that list, if I remember rightly. And so the Greeks basically saw it as Custodes being the easier one to kill of the two.
Wow, that doesn't feel right, hearing that. I'm just going to put that out there. That doesn't feel right at all. Okay, so then first defenders in for Poland were also Admech, same thing, Breach of Spam, up against, and then they got attacked by a Necron and Harlequin's force. What were in the two armies?
So the Harlequin's army is, we'll say quote unquote, it's just very much the standard army of lots of troops in Starweaver, Skyweavers.
Yeah, it's a double Skyweavers, yeah.
Yeah, less fusion pistols than normal, but it's pretty much the same thing. We're not going to expect anything there. The Necron list, on the other hand, was a little bit different in that it's built around, there's 3 units and 9 Scarab Swarms in here. And then you've got a Transcendent Satan, and you've got the Nightbringer and a Catacomb Command Barge. You've got 3 very, very hitty combat units, you've got Scarab Swarms, and you've got Tomb Blades, you've got some fast units there as well. And I believe that, as Nico said to me, the idea was of putting both these lists forward was they felt against the Admech is going to be kind of a static army. In terms of the dogs are going to be forward and take ball position, but everything else want to stay still. The breaches aren't that mobile.
There's one thing that's worth mentioning about our Admech. We are running a list with 35 dogs.
Yeah, you guys have all in on the dogs.
So we have 27 Cerberus Raiders and I think 9 Sulfur Hounds or something like that.
Yeah. And so the Greeks
sounds expensive.
The Necrons and the Harlequins have got enough mobility to cause the Admech real headaches, and enough mobility in scoring as well. And also the fact that they both because of the strong parts of the units, be it the Scarabs, be it the Satan, be it the Harlequins, they're ignoring the terrain, so they don't really care what board the Admech pick. They'll be able to work around it much easily.
Okay.
So
interesting.
you guys obviously decided to go against the Necrons. So why was that, Typhus?
So actually, we played a lot of games, and I'm playing Admech and Harlequins as both armies, and I knew Admech wins against Harleys big. That's one of the matchups where when you are playing Admech, you can swing that matchup a lot. But we didn't want to choose Harlequins that early because Necrons were a problematic thing in the later pairings. We had a lot of bad pairings against Necrons. So we thought that instead of choosing a very good pairing early on with Harlequins, which would be like a win of 15 points, how we assumed, we chosen Necrons because it would make later pairings better. And it's a drawish matchup.
Okay, a drawish matchup. Wow, that's pretty good from a first defender, like being able to pull out a draw, right?
Yeah, I think actually Admech are one of the best armies right now in the game. Just people do not know how to build it, I guess.
Really, it's very interesting.
Nice.
Okay, and is that because of the Sulfur Hounds? Is that what we're seeing?
Oh yes, surely, man, surely.
Okay.
No. It's actually in a team environment. In a single tournament, it might not be, but in team environment, this army is priceless. It has so many good matchups on the good tables that you cannot really.
And to be fair, I mean, okay, maybe not the level of dogs you've got, but you know, Daniel, the Swedish captain, and a lot of people have backed him up on this, have said that, you know, if you're playing Imperium as a singles player, there's no reason not to take an Engine Seer for units of dogs. It's like what, 270 points for 15 dogs an Engine Seer, and you plug it into any Imperium list, and it just gives your army so just that area denial is just so worth it. So you'll see a variance of this quite a lot. Maybe not all the Cataphrons, but this block of dogs, I think it's become much more common when we get to single player.
Yeah, it's the most undercosted unit in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, big stonks on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, get buying because they'll be sold out quick with Games Workshop's production level at the moment. It'll be hard to get hold of these. All right, so second defender in for Poland, Tyranids. Is this the Dimmacarons? Dimmacarons? Is that what?
No, this is Vladdy fucking about.
Yeah, this is time to abuse Vladdy. For those who don't know, Vladdy is he's a big player in Poland. He's been to I think he's been to almost every single ETC, WTC. So therefore, he's open to full abuse, especially from Typhus, because Vladdy is also one of the selectors of the Polish team, isn't he?
Well, yeah. Let's keep on that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an interesting list. It's only got one Dimmacaron, Rob.
So
what he's got, what it's built around is 3 units of 9 Raveners and a unit of 9 Warriors.
What? Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think it's the best army in the game right now. You've heard it. I think Tyranids right now are better in pairing in team matchups than, for example, all the Marine armies.
Yeah,
they are way better because.
But do you think Vladdy's Nids are the best army in the game right now?
I'm not sure about that.
Raveners.
But I don't think he lost many games with it. Like he has only one bad pairing when we were talking about thoroughly, and that's Harlequins, which you can see there. And that's the only pairing in the game he's really afraid of. And maybe Eldar. Yeah. So armies, of course, so in singles, it might not work well because you have a lot of Harlequins running around, but in team environment, it's a great army. Yeah. And it doesn't require table like Admech does.
Yeah. So I'm guessing therefore you put Vladdy forward because he's got one bad matchup and you basically dodge that and you'll have a good game regardless then.
Yeah. And we were hoping they would give us an army that would be a problematic army later down the pairings.
And
so, well, I won't talk about that one.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, the Greeks put forward the Harlequins, which we talked about, and then they put forward their demon list, which is, it's the archetype, it's the Exalted Keepers, it's a little change. The only thing that's different here is they've got 2 units of 10 Slaneshi Terminators.
Yes, yeah. As do you guys, actually.
Yeah. So. Which is obviously, I think I can't remember, was it Matt Morosoli in Australia won a couple of events for that recently, so they're starting to get a bit of love there as well.
Meat Watch got on them, didn't they?
They did. The Slaneshi Terminators got on the Meat Watch. Okay, so Tyranids versus Slaneshi Demons. Let's go. And then the second defenders for Poland. Look at this. Is a full mirror. Is there a psychological game here? Is this because you can't know what they put in, right? It's just you're guessing.
No, you don't know what
they put in.
You don't know what the defenders are. You both reveal your defenders
at the same time. Right. Okay. Yeah. So Harlequin, not Harlequin. Sorry, Tyranids defender again.
I'm sorry. There's an interruption in the chat. Someone actually said correctly that attackers on Tyranids were wolves and demons.
Okay.
So we were incorrect. So let me clarify. So it wasn't Harlequins. Well, for some reason I thought it was Harlequins. So why we didn't choose wolves is that we had nearly all good pairings against Space Wolves later. I think that's a case with Space Marines right now. Their meta is kind of prepared to kill those 4+ invul, 2+ safe bodies, and it is doing that very efficiently. So we are running a game with Canada, and we will not bring any Marines because we think even dropping Dark Angels might be a good thing for a team that you are not having any Space Marine list. Wow. So
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And I think the point you made there about how everything's good for you, like against the Space Wars later on, when I looked at this, I actually thought the Defender free is actually just where you win it, because you have so many good matchups in that entire section. And I think Greece might have made a tiny mistake in here as well, but we'll come to that in the next section.
Yeah. But obviously the Greeks defended with their NIDs, which, Rob will be pleased to hear is a Dimer on list.
Yeah, he knows what that does. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm in now. I'm super invested emotionally.
Triple Dimer Care on, all the jazz you've been hearing for the past couple of weeks. So no surprises there.
It's not a surprise. I mean, it feels like it's a surprise to a lot of the other people on the internet, but not to me now. And they've been attacked by Death Guard and Harlequins. That's who Poland put in against the Hellas Defender. Fascinating. What were in the two lists?
So Harleys is the list I've been playing, and I've got really fucking fed up with it. I'm sorry. I didn't say that one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But,
we're on this one. You're fine, mate.
I was really emotionally connected with how I got tired with it. It's 6 times 5 men in boat with fusions, and 3 big choppy squads. I think 12, 10, 10 with caresses.
And you have
all soaring spy. No, I think bikes are a waste of points. And I think actually English stole in my list after playing 2 games with us.
Classic.
So
it's in the British Museum right now, mate.
That's a deep joke. That's good.
I think the crucial thing about playing Harleys against Tyranids is that you need to have the soaring spite Sky Strider Twilight Flame guy, because you can send him in, trade him for like 3-4 Hive Guards, and then you can play the game comfortably. And that's the biggest point when you think about Harleys versus Tyranids matchup.
Okay, fascinating. And then what was in the Death Guard list?
So a little bit of the what is it? Art of War, Nick Nanavati one that's been bounced around a lot.
Okay.
Oh, do you disagree, Tom?
I haven't seen it. I didn't realise that's where it came from.
Well, I think him and Brad have been talking about this list for the past sort of month or two.
Okay, that's fair.
Variations of this list.
And what is in the list?
So it's 2 Chaos Contemptor Dreadnoughts with the Volkite Culverins. You get a lot. They basically cause mortal wounds on 6s to wound, and then obviously if Death Guard, you can basically buff that around. You get some shenanigans there. It's 3 of Death Shroud Terminators, 2 of 5, 1 of 3. I think the list that Brad's running has gone for 3 of 5 now. Yeah. Some Spawn for some cheeky, engage all front stuff there. Poxwalkers and Typhus, because Typhus is just super point efficient. He's really good, and Poxwalker's amazing.
Can you legally take Typhus?
Yes, you can. We allowed it in WTC, and we checked. We Tom, obviously being the person he is, role as for TW, he double checked it, and it was intended. It was always intended to be taken. And then it's basically the only thing. Then he's got the Photos Varions. He's got the Biologist Purifier, the Firebites on the Taliban. It's super standard choices. The big difference is, it's moving away from the Blight Lord Terminators to Death Shrouds, because Death Shrouds are just so efficient for what they can do. Yeah,
so I actually played against this. Innis was running it. That's why it makes sense that it came from Nick and Brad, because I know they talk a lot. And it's super oppressive if you're playing any kind of melee army. You physically cannot charge this bastard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think thing that you didn't mention and that makes this whole list work is the 60 Poxwalkers.
Yeah.
60 Poxwalkers actually with their mortal wounds on 6s to hit and 2 attacks each. Yeah. They're oppressive.
And it's not just the Poxwalkers are doing it, because you're the Biologist Purifier, he's going to basically make one of those Death Shrouds do mortals as well when they swing.
Yeah.
So they're going to swing with what?
Really
they're going to swing. Yeah. They're going to do all their mini attacks. They're going to be swinging like, something like 30 attacks, doing mortals. This army's designed to pump out mortals.
There's a lot of tricks with Poxwalkers as well. If you unwillingly kill one, they can revive, get an objective in a way that you wouldn't expect they would get, etc. So they are, I think, one of the best units in the Death Guard, with all the support coming around them.
Yeah, and I think the list on this version is. So I was going to say, this list or a variation of it is absolutely the best Death Guard list around, I think.
Oh, 100%. It's not even close. Yeah.
Do you think the reason that do you think it's like a direct response to the meta out there, like Dark Angels being so incredibly survivable, with the armor saves and the transhuman, just pushing the mortal wounds through is just a much easier way. It's just way more efficient to just go through that process, as opposed to have to actually make them take saves and wound them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And even just like, it's just the Dark Angels. It's like the prevalence of -1 damage is becoming a big deal. Elite armies with high armor saves.
Them occurrence.
Yeah.
If they do not strike first and Death Rods swing first, it can be hard.
Yeah, there's just. Just like in AOS, the more mortal wounds you can reliably pump out, the better it is. And it's just this army is probably the most efficient mortal wound spam army in the game right now.
I think that key point there being that you can't charge it, right? That's the kind of big one. You can't charge it, and because you can't charge it, and lists generally have got a lot of they've got units in them that are going to try and push people off objectives. They've got those combat units, right? And then you're just neutering them with that ability. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's not just charge it. Sorry, so you can actually turn off two. This army can turn off 2 units. It can say to one unit you strike last, and it can say to another unit you don't count as charging, which is massive.
Okay. All right. But so then, with that being the case, why do you think the Tyranids chose to play into the Death Guard?
Because they have 3D occurrence.
Yeah,
very fast in that.
I don't know what to say more. 3D
no, that's fine. That works.
Damage 3 plus D3 against 3 wounds -1 damage. Morals are
kind
of efficient.
And you also do get 1 point as well, so you can afford to fight last, right?
Yeah.
So you can still charge him. They're one of the only things that can get through it.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Round 3.
Yeah, round 3. Hella's first defender.
So, can I talk about this one, please?
Yeah, go for it.
Because here's what I think's happened. I think Greece has seen the Death Guard go out. So now what have you got left for Poland? You've got Harlequins, which are awful for sisters. You've got the Death Guard, the Dark Angels. You've got the Standard Sisters, the Mirror Match. And you've got the Exotic Demons. Exotic Demons, you should be fine. Harlequins should be awful. The DA aren't great for you, but I also don't think it's the worst DA list that you could face as sisters, because they're kind of more MSU based, and they've also got a lot of land speeders that go around the place, right? So you're putting the sisters down thinking there's only one bad matchup for you, right? But when that implies that you're happy to take the mirror match, because if you stick it down and you say, okay, well, you're going to play against me with the Harlequins and the sisters, or the Harlequins and the DA, that effectively means you have to be happy to take the DA or the sisters mirror. What's happened is Poland have put down sisters and Harlequins, and they've taken the Harlequins, which I don't think is good for sisters. But Piotr, you might disagree. That's fine. I think sisters get murdered by Harlequins. What do you think? Because I know you play Harlequins a lot.
It depends a lot on how the sister player plays it. When I was playing against very good players, it would be a draw. But if they make, as is the case with all the Harlequins games, if someone makes a mistake, you can abuse that very hard.
Even with that many troops on those boards that are left?
Sorry? Could you
Even
repeat?
with that many troop units on those boards that are left, where you can't really get the shit. Okay.
Yeah. There's also one thing about our mirror. Our sisters player, I think we played 5 scrims with other teams, and he played sisters mirror 5 times and won 3 times. He played mirror 3 times and won all of them.
Yeah,
Wow.
So that makes sense. So that would make sense why you'd want to avoid the sisters, but if you're not happy to take the mirror out, I don't know why you first defend. Or third defend.
What I wanted to say is that our sisters are tailored to play
other sisters.
Another sisters.
Yeah. So you shouldn't be putting down the sisters as a defender third at all if you've got a tailored sisters to beat your sisters and Harlequins.
So you're saying the Hella's made a mistake in this situation?
Yeah, I think they should have
down
put
the
it down.
sisters list as a defender. Okay.
Yeah.
Typhus, did you agree with that when you saw it go down? Were you excited, or was that not the case?
No, we actually thought they caught us.
Oh, really?
What do you mean? I'm looking at these pairings here, and you've got 3 favourable matchups at least.
Yes, but from our estimations, it was actually the worst move for us, which we didn't realize later on. But we wanted to avoid one thing, and they got it. So, yeah.
So it shows how little we know, Tom.
No, not really. No, I think they know little. It's fine. Because clearly it worked out okay. See?
Yeah. I was surprised they chosen Harlequins.
Yeah, I was too.
All right, interesting. And they chose Harlequins, and you are surprised by that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
And
I mean,
I'm
Harlequins
playing-
just trade so well as well. You basically put two trading armies against each other, like Typhus
Yeah.
said. The Harlequins are going to like this Harlequin list is boats full of fusions. So you're going to have to, basically, it's basically saying that every fusion unit's got a boat keeping them alive. You have to pop the boat before you even get to the guys inside, and it just makes trading very hard.
And there's 9 OPSEC units.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what it also means is if you put the sisters down, you're not going to attack it with demons. You're not going to do that. So when you are pairing into whatever you put down as first defender, you need to bear that in mind because you think that demons are probably going to be left as forgotten.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right. So then, in the next thable, the defenders, Poland's turn to defend. This is round. We're in round 3. We're still in round 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Round 3. So the third defender here went down. We got Marines. What flavour of Marines have we seen down here?
That's
This is the
Dark Angels. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
it's a horrific list, and it needs to get
Yeah.
FAQ'd. It's the fact that you've put 4 units of assault terminators in that list. Because
True.
obviously it's legal. There's 3 units of Deathwing Terminators for their assault shields, and then there's a 5-man assault Terminator unit taken from the Space Marine.
Yes, look at that. Amazing. Yeah.
and it's
that
the
also
Pumba
means-
guy from chat playing that list, and he hates it. And he
Pumba-
hates this army because it's so dumb.
what that also means is that when Hellas attack this with Space Wolves and Harlequins, what have they just left over to play what they know is going to be Chaos Demons?
Great night.
With leftover Grey Knights.
Yeah.
And it's not good, man.
So Pumba's in the chat. Pumba thinks that the army is dumb, like it's so strong, right? Like, is this is a really favourable pairing no matter what goes into it.
By the way, Pumba is the Greek captain.
Oh, Pumba, big love to you.
No, Pumba.
Oh, he
Pumba,
hates it because he's playing
no,
with it.
Pumba is a Dark Angels player from our team.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
sorry,
Polish.
Sorry, Papa Junior's the Greek
There
captain.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, welcome to my life, Neil, where everyone is a fake name on the internet. I got no clue. Yeah,
Oh,
I only
Rob,
refer them by the Twitch handle.
honestly, after like 8 years of refereeing at the ETC and shouting at people because they just use their fake names all the time, they walk up to you and go, "My score is wrong. What's your name?" Dave. What did you play for? Poland. You look at Poland, there's no
There are no
Daves
Daves.
because it's all made up names all the time.
Well, same applies to Greeks. We have like a hard matchup in that sense. We have Polish names and Greek names, and none of you could pronunciate those.
All of those names are made up.
That's the real matter that no one's talking about.
Polish names are just like bees buzzing. It's like and Greek is just it's that easy.
Well,
I'd like to apologise to all of our audience
As if I
members
heard
right now.
last Saturday evening.
I mean, or it's just Polish is kurwa over and
Yeah,
over again,
That was good.
and Greek
pronunciation.
is malaka malaka malaka.
You can take the Englishman out of, or even the Scotsman out of the UK, Neil, but can't take it out of the fun of the
You can't take
UK.
the Scottish out.
Colonialism at its greatest.
All right,
We'll have
so
your swear words, and we'll have your swear words. And
can we talk about who did they get paired into? So all of the Terminators in this Dark Angel list, what did they get paired into?
into the Space Wars.
The space. So the Thunderwolf Cavalry.
Okay.
And is this the one where the score has already come in, Tiffus?
No, the
Might as
last
well.
one. The last one has a
Yeah.
score.
But this list, Rob, is basically 3 units of Thunderwolf Cavalry, unit of Interceptors, and a bunch of Blade Guard.
Okay, and you just don't think that they haven't got the output to punch through all those Terminators?
It's just you just run into stuff that you can only wound on force, and it's got
Yeah, and
one part
when you
of it.
look at the Space Wolf list as well, they have only lightning claws.
Right. Okay.
That changes a lot. Flat free against Terminators is pretty good,
Yeah.
and lightning claws are kind of meh.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
And then obviously the Dark Angels have got the Apothecary. There's going to be resurrecting a guy every turn, healing another guy every turn. I just don't see the Space Wolves grinding through 20 Dark Angels.
And there's also shooting. You cannot neglect that. There's 6 attacks bikes and 5 speeders there,
Yeah.
so it shoots as well. So yeah, this army is stupid. It has like all the rules you could imagine and then some.
Yeah.
So
It's so
Yeah.
stupid. I basically sold this army last week to Kicken. Team Sweet.
Stonks. Stonks.
The stonks are high. Get them sold.
Stonks were high. Bikes and Terminators.
All right. Okay. So then into the next pairing. Or no, who's left? So obviously Space Wolves got chosen, and it's favoured that Space Wolves are not going to win that, unfortunately. Dark Angel's in that, but come on, Space Wolves, you've got this.
So
and then
Hook, right?
yeah, we got the hooks, Tom.
Yeah. Boom.
So we got the sisters. So do you want to explain the hook? What does the hook mean again?
So when you put your attackers up, one of your attackers gets picked to play the defender, and the other one gets lobbed back again to get put into your hand. But when you get to the last round, you don't have enough stuff in your hand. So the two things that get rejected get to play each other, which means that we get a second Sisters versus Harlequin matchup, just from the other perspective, with the Sisters being played by Poland and the Harlequins being played by Greece.
And that's that's what's not chosen in round 3, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
That's the stuff that's rejected. Yeah.
And to add more, our sisters list, as it was tailored for a mirror, it's all when you mirror again, like tailor your list against sisters, you actually tailor it against Harleys as well, because those armies play the same.
Yeah.
So I think when you compare those two matchups with me playing against Nicola, with me playing Harleys, and the other way around with their Harlequin player playing against our sisters, we actually have kind of better sisters army for that pairing, because we have 2 Seraphim squads and 2 Seraphim squads with Flamers. That's all that changes this pairing, in my opinion. So
and you think that tips the balance towards the sisters with the Seraphim squad?
It just makes it better. It just makes this pairing better.
Okay.
Because you cannot reliably charge them. You cannot really shoot them with Harleys. And if they are Blood Heroes, they kill you in close combat. So you cannot deal with them, really.
Okay. That's fascinating.
How do you feel about Table 2 versus Table 8? Which one do you think is more favourable for the Sisters against the Harlequins?
I don't know. I haven't looked at them yet.
Okay. I'm assuming Table 2 is a little bit lighter, but...
I really do not recall.
Okay, so just going into the final table here, Table 6. So you got the 2 unpicked armies, right? Left over in the hand. Listen, I read about this on Meat Watch this week. Grey Knights, is that right? Is that what I'm seeing here? Grey Knights going into is this actual Chaos Demons, or is this Chaos?
This is Chaos Demons with Chaos Soup, so you've got some Terminators in there again.
The Slanesh Terminators.
The Slanesh 20 Terminators, yes.
The Meat Watch Terminators.
Okay, perfect. All right, sweet. And this feels like who is this a good matchup for? Like,
I think for Demons.
Interesting.
I mean, it's weird.
And we thought
fluff-wise,
it's very bad for demons.
Oh, come on. You guys are messes, man.
Well,
what was it score, Piotr?
It was 12-8 for our demons, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. But we expected to lose this one. So, yeah.
And then, can I ask a question about the setup? Because as you're going through all of the different defenders and attackers, the one that's left, like, are you always conscious about the one that's left over, or do you generally try and make all of the pairings favourable for the ones you can more control, and you just roll the dice on what ends up being left in the hand at the end, or are you also trying to manage that, like, at the same time?
We kind of focus more on the last 4 pairings
Okay.
to get. Because what Tom mentioned, I think you can actually win or lose the game on those 4, because you kind of easily choose the earlier pairings with who's defending, who's attacking, etc. It's quite obvious, but what you do in those last steps is actually kind of dictating the result of the game.
Effectively,
is that from Defender 3, sorry, or from Defender 2? From Defender 3,
Defender
right?
3 with those hooks and the left out armies.
What you're trying to do in the first 2 Defender rounds is you're trying to fish out some of the armies you don't want in the bottom 4, and then if you do all that properly, you end up like with similar scores on your first 2 Defender rounds, and then it comes down to the last 4 pairings. Which
if you recall, I've said that we didn't choose Harleys for our Admech, and we chose Necrons to get a good pairings later down the lane.
Yes.
So because we had better pairings against Harleys, because everyone here in Poland got used to playing against Harleys.
Yeah.
And we think they are getting worse and worse in the meta.
Yeah.
With how people
I
are
think
used
the same with Sisters as well, actually.
Is that because
Yeah,
people are getting used to all their tricks and can play around them?
I think the way you want to play into Sisters is often the same as the way you want to play 9th edition anyway, when you're just lobbing little bits of shit into the middle of a board and then you have to trade into it and try to remove it, right? And it makes it very, very difficult. And if you actually go down the list of armies that you'd be pairing into, how many of them aren't great for Sisters? Like, you're talking like 4 or 5 at a certain point. Death
and
Guard
it's mostly Marines.
Yeah, and Marines as well. You can't do anything in a DA either. Like, it becomes one of those lists now, Sisters, like how you guys were using, you know, when you've got armies like Triple Catan, or maybe even like how you were originally using Craft Worlds, where you have to be very careful with how you use them in pairings. I feel like Sisters are getting towards that, but as we're saying, we're not really getting the massive rewards you'd expect.
Yeah, I think they are way better army for singles.
Yes,
with
100%.
all those Marines, people playing Marines,
You have to
etc.
prep for everything, yeah.
Yeah.
But in team, I think they still have their place in team environment. But
For now,
that's why I said we tailor them for mirrors and for Harley's matchup.
We were doing the same thing.
I think that's interesting, actually, that you said. I think it's really interesting that you said that Harleys and Sisters play the same way. So you can you're almost have got, if you've got something that's playing to one, it can play into both. I think that's actually really interesting from the setup. Okay.
And it actually shows. And it actually showed with all our pairings. There are a few armies that crush both of those. So
who are the armies that are good into Sisters? In your opinion, who are the armies that are good into both Sisters and Harlequins?
So one of them is Craftword Eldar, but it needs to be piloted by a very good player.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of them. And the other army is Horde Orcs, but it needs to be piloted by a very good player as well.
Yeah.
So, but those 2 armies, if you play them well, Harleys and Sisters cannot win against you.
No, true.
There's no way.
Yeah, you just don't give the so long as you don't give Repentia like multi-charges and good trades, and you're in a decent spot. But at the same time, as you say, you need to be a very good player, not just to do that, but there's a lot of other micro things you need to do as well.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, Neil and Piotr, fascinating hearing your thoughts on these pairings, actually. How do you think, I mean, obviously I know the answer already, but how do you think you did in the pairings? Good? Well?
You were unhappy.
Oh, okay.
We were unhappy, and we had to talk what we could have done better.
Wow.
And we had the team talk, thinking what could have been, what might be wrong, etc., etc. So I don't know what was Nicholas' reaction, but we weren't happy.
And then you played a matchup you thought you lost, and you won it. So
yeah, but
I don't think that's bad for you. I genuinely don't.
Okay, so that leaves us with Neil and Tom. I mean, is it fascinating that you've walked away? I feel like you're the sort of person who's never going to be happy, though, unless you absolutely 100% everything. So, I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. Go on, Neil.
I'm looking at the last 4, Rob, and you've got 2 Sister versus Harlequin matchups, so let's say they're even. And then you've got Dark Angels versus Space Wolves, which is winning for the Dark Angels. And then you've got Chaos Demons versus Grey Knights. So it's understandable that you think that it is bad if you think that's a losing matchup. But as I've won it, you've now got 2 evens, potentially, and then you've got a winning. And then you've got rounds 1 through 2, where, I mean, if you've done that properly, Van should come out even, and then you just win off these last 3. So
yeah, I think the match that's probably going to decide it is going to be the Dark Angel Space Wolves, because I think, like you say, like Tom says, a lot of the matches balance each other out, or they're very even. The Dark Angel Space Wolf game, you assume the Dark Angels are going to dominate that board and score big points there, and probably be the big points that tips the match into the favour of Poland. You only need to score 11 points more than your opponent to win the round, basically.
Yeah, so. One more thing that I want to add why I think we were unhappy is that you guys only see those pairings from outside perspective, and we were looking at them from our estimation tables.
Of course.
And we thought that we could have gotten better. And those matchups were estimated by our players. And you know the pain when you are actually a captain pairing the team. Everyone doesn't want to play with anything. They are always scared. Yeah. And unless it's a really good matchup in some way, people never want to do that. So yeah, there's also the problem when you're a captain and people are cowards
Yeah.
because they don't want to be blamed upon by the rest of the team
Yeah,
later.
I mean, it's always like an interpolitical relationship, right? Like, for example, I know in Team England, they all lowball their fucking projections constantly.
Same
Because
here,
there's massive
same here.
issues. Yeah, and it's all just personality management, right? Like, and if you have
What
someone
is the
who's a lot
what
more
is the
robust and fun,
what is the
great.
strategy to make them feel more confident?
Practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've played so many team tourneys right now, like maybe not tourneys, those, how do you call them, screams?
Yeah, scrims.
That we are actually testing out different things to find a solution. So, and that's giving us a lot of experience with different lists, different ideas, what works, what doesn't. So
Yeah, I mean, I can say, like, when I was captain for Team Scotland and playing for Team Scotland, you saw a big difference with the players that were, like people like, Blackie, Bernie, these guys were going to tournaments all the time. They're playing their lists week in, week out. Their confidence level in terms of the matches they could take, or even say, they'll go like, I'll take this bad match because it'll open up for us and they know how to play it. Their confidence levels were so huge compared to we want to sound bad, but we'd have some more casual players in the team at that time. Those guys are like, oh, I can't win anything. Even games, the rest of the team's like, this is a win for you. They'd still be super unconfident because they're afraid of letting the team down as well. That affects their confidence a lot because they don't want to be. They don't want to feel like they're the guys that let the team down in that round.
Yeah, of course not. Fascinating. Honestly, another lovely evening of learning some 40k stuff, which I've enjoyed. And I hope the audience has as well. Piotr, thanks for coming on the show. Have you got any sort of final thoughts or anything you think we might have missed today?
Well, I think what we might be missing is the Germany versus Canada game. And that one should be one to watch out with both teams going with their A teams.
And I think that's actually going to. And I think that's
for.
that's what we're going to look at next week. And hopefully, Chris will be able to come on the show next week.
Yeah, especially as Canada will have time to prep, which I know they do a lot of work for each of the rounds they play. I think that could be a really good game.
Okay. All right. Nice. All right, Neil. Any sort of roundups that you think anything might have missed?
No, there's nothing you missed. I think it's going good. The rounds are starting to shape up. The teams are getting to the top. It's going to get quite interesting because as the tournament goes on, you're expecting to get much tighter as well.
Piotr, you're being offered a 10-10 in the chat and going for a coffee instead. Which is
tell them no.
Well, I prefer harder alcohols than coffee.
Papa Junior, you lowballed that, I'm afraid.
Coffee is an alcohol. Is all we need to know.
Well, depends. Irish is, and I love Irish. So,
Tom, you got any thoughts on this before we head out?
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Scramblers for being shit, and that's all.
Right. Appreciate it forever.
You're welcome.
Well, I for one have loved listening to you three talk about this a lot. So thank you very much, and I hope you people have too. I see. Sorry against the chat. I've learned a lot. I think I have as well. I'll make sure to include in the show notes the link so you guys can go and check out all this information. Neil, there's also you can go and check it out on the WTC page and also on the Greekhammer pages, right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you go into your WTC page, the World Team Championships on Facebook, or the Greekhammer40k, all one big word, that is the Team Greece page there, and all the details are there.
Okay, all right, sweet. Papa Junior asked, can we ask Piotr about his thoughts on secondaries? I think we did that earlier, right? We covered your thoughts on.
No. He's asking because he's playing me tomorrow, and he offered me 10-10 already.
Lovely. All right.
Sneaky little bastard.
Well, listen, it's been super great having all three of you on. I can't thank you enough. I hope you guys have enjoyed it at home. We will be back next Sunday, but it will be part of our Stream Streak birthday, so we'll have been alive for 365 days next Sunday. So that's our big birthday party, so it'll be intermixed in there. So do tune in for that. It's going to be super fun. You guys have been great. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks for listening. See you guys soon, and have a nice day.
Bye.